Hi, so I'm talking today about Greg Bishop's interview with Dr. Jeffrey Kripal on Radio Misterioso. Came out a while back, and it's called Meaning and Mechanism. And I've been trying to find a nice, even-handed, superlogical way to express these ideas that I have in response to some of the things that were said on the interview, but I just can't. I had a strange experience with this because I had been dealing with the same ideas, meaning and mechanism. Now, to start off with, Dr. Kripal was saying, I think it was just being like provocative and trying to shake things up, that meaning was all important and that mechanism doesn't matter. There might not be a mechanism. None of these phenomena are reproducible. Technology, David Metcalfe asked a question about the relationship of mysticism and technology, and he went straight to AI, completely disregarding the 20,000 plus year history of people using technology to access mystical states. So let me sum up here to begin with. In my opinion, meaning and mechanism are both equally important when we're doing what I think should be our main goal as people studying these phenomena, which is to try and help people cope with these challenging experiences that they have. There are people that have experiences of communion with or visions of their dead relatives, and it's very comforting and uplifting experience. But there's also people that have very challenging, difficult experiences. I know that Dr. Kripal has worked closely with Whitley Strieber, and some really ontologically, physically, emotionally violating experiences. And it seems to me if we're going to study this out of our own curiosity, we owe it to the people that are helping us satisfy this curiosity and advance our knowledge to do our best to help them. And saying, well, there's no mechanism, there's no way we can find anything out, it just is not helping people. I believe from my own experience, my own experiments, including my synchronicity experiment with Steve Ray that we did on Radio Misterioso, that you can find mechanisms on like the mental and meaning level as well as on the physical level. And I would not discount those mechanisms on the physical level at all. I hear a lot of people getting down on materialists and science in the larger conversation about all this. It would have been really nice for Ann Strieber and Whitley Strieber, I believe, if they had been able to protect themselves against the possibility of that radiation giving her brain cancer, right? Steve Michalek, it would have been nice for him to not have experienced those burns, and it looks like some form of radiation exposure and sickness in his encounter. And I think it would be the height of, I don't even know what, just a cold-heartedness, if you're seeing Steve Michalek so desperately ill at the bus stop after his encounter, to start talking to him about meaning instead of hauling his ass to the hospital. Now, one of my own concerns has been over the years, people that have manipulative, abusive, nasty encounters with disincarnate beings in a sexual way. So I've done a lot of studying and talked to people, and I've got to say, most of the time they are not so concerned with what it means. I mean, they're pretty. First of all, so if you're trying to slide into someone's DMs on the psychic level and think that you're going to get away with it without them knowing who you are, it's fascinating to me. It's like everyone's like, oh yeah, I knew who it was right away. But the other thing is, so they know what it means, they want to know how to make it stop. And so in that way, I feel it's our responsibility as just human beings to not neglect the mechanism, not neglect even the material aspect of that, if it is of help in these situations, which I think if you look to the esotericists, the practicing occultists, lots of times you'll find that there are various physical actions that you can take that will be helpful in these situations. At the same time, meaning and mechanism, of course, are intricately linked. Getting back to mysticism and technology, you'll see that certain technologies or certain symbols, elements, uh, physical objects will be used as a technology to contact us, for example, particular intelligences, or to help a person enter a trance-like state. The drum, the shaman's drum, right? You beat the drum, helps you uh, enter into the trance state, and then you can communicate with these other beings. All type of offerings are a technology. You want to have a particular, if you want to call in a particular intelligence or a particular entity, goddess, deity, or whatever, you're going to set up particular offerings that have to do with calling in that entity. So, and then of course now we have the internet. I thought it was kind of ironic that Kripal was saying, well, scientists, they can make an iPhone. It's like, well, I don't know how you think you're getting your ideas out there right now. I'm listening on an iPhone. So I understand what he's saying, because, you know, a lot of this material progress is not very well considered. However, there are people, he also made a remark that science and philosophy is telling us that more and more things are dead, which again I think was a little kind of grandstanding, so to speak. I think that would be a surprise to, for example, the science of medicine, biology, organic chemistry. I mean, there are these huge, vast swaths of science. The whole point of them is to figure out, okay, what can we learn about life? And in medicine, a lot of it has to do with reducing suffering and keeping people from dying. I've been in a situation a handful of times where I was very close to death, and I can tell you that the doctors did not like it. They were working very passionately, maybe in a panic mode, maybe, to try and prevent that, right? So I think it is a bit of a slap in the face to these people who have dedicated their lives and thought and, you know, really put it out there to do what they can. I mean, of course, you know, no one can do everything, to help people who, you know, just from dying. And I thought it was interesting too. I think maybe he was getting at George Hansen talking about, oh God, I forget the guy who talked about it, but in the Friction of the Paranormal, he's talking about the whole idea of disenchantment of society as we move forward and become more complicated, and these hierarchies and everything. And even there, it's interesting to me. I graduated from high school in 1980. When I was a kid, I never had Novocaine when they did dental work, and I had a ton of feelings because they thought that the nervous system of young people and infants wasn't developed enough for them to really feel pain. They used to, when I was a young person, they used to do open heart surgery on infants with no anesthesia. They would just strap them down. Now you think that it would have occurred to them, why do we have to strap them down if they can't feel anything, right? Anyway, finally they got around to think, oh yeah, they can feel pain. They proved it scientifically, and started giving them anesthesia, and they ended up surviving at greater rates, these infants. But also we see people who are studying, for example, language acquisition in the great apes and in parrots. Alex, the famous gray parrot, who was shown to acquire language and could do all type of logical functions and abstract functions by his penny, I forget her last name, who lived with him for many years and devised the type of experiments which prove what many people had observed for themselves about the intelligence of creatures that are so far distant from us in a genetic and phylogenetic sense. So in that way, they have re-enchanted the world. And so I just wanted to push back against this, because I understand that it's important to have that enchantment. It's important to get at meaning, because I think a lot of what people need is sometimes just someone to talk to, just someone to bounce ideas off about, okay, how, you know, my life used to be this one way, and now I've had this experience. It's opened up everything and changed my paradigms, and how can I integrate this into my life? But sometimes people just need a lifeline. Some people have physical consequences from these things, which are very challenging, kundalini awakenings, or they are being harassed by other people or entities, and they just want some help on how to make it stop. And I think by studying things like, for example, the relationship of mysticism and technology through the years, through on a personal level, it doesn't even have to be super complicated. People looking at doing their own synchronicity experiments. You can verify for yourself what many people have found about the conditions in which these type of paranormal occurrences arise, and you can get a feel for yourself of the way that the inside and the outside can speak to each other, the way that meaning can map onto mechanism, the way that it can grab onto whatever mechanism it can find to manifest. I have my own instructions on if you want to try making your own synchronicity experiment for yourself to get some insight into the process, maybe your own kind of feel for how these mechanisms will work. And so you can pursue that if you like. I include instructions on what to do if things get a little too hairy for you. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions on either end of that. And then I'll also put a link to the material surrounding Stephen Mai's synchronicity experimenting when we secretly experimented on Greg and the Radio Misterioso guests. And it's fascinating to see how can this mystical idea of a symbol of, let's say, a honeybee move from two people just thinking about it and come out through the technology of a pirate radio station, and involving the communication. We only communicated through electronic means. If you do decide to do this type of thing, Steve's insight there was excellent, that you can use these electronic digital tools these days to keep your notes, and everything's time and date stamped. So it's very easy to do and have that type of structure to it, and then you can go back in afterwards and see things that maybe you hadn't noticed before. And this can give you a little personal insight into the experience of the way meaning and mechanism interact in these realms and in your life, and maybe give you a little more confidence going forward if you end up in a situation where someone around you or someone coming to you wants some help. Because that's the main thing I'd like to end with here, is that I think meaning and mechanism are both important. I think that the immaterial and the material realms, of course these are just concepts, are both important, and especially when we're dealing with experiencers and witnesses and people who have had a challenging experience and want help in integrating it. I don't think that we're in a position where we know so much about anything that we're able to discount any aspect of this and just leave it to the side and say, well, maybe we could figure something out this way. But, what? We're in many ways at sea in these areas, not quite as at sea as I think. But I think that just kind of giving up and saying, well, science can't help us, or we can't figure it out rationally, or maybe it's just kind of something that happens. I'm not willing to go there, and I don't think that you should either. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll put some links underneath, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.